welcome to Heart production day 1. This is Heart to Heart shoot day 2.
Heart to Heart shooting day 3.
Heart to Heart shoot
Day
day
4.
Hi, I'm the producer of Heart to Heart. Effectively, I was in charge of casting, keeping in contact with everyone, making sure everyone's happy, making sure the risk assessments are all done, and I also help set up if needed. If there's shorthands and Daisy needs help with pull focus, I also step up to do that too. Effectively, I'm pretty sure I've done a good job. Everything so far has gone very smoothly, and nothing really has gone wrong. However, out of everything that I've been in charge of, my favourite thing I'd have to say was the casting. Meeting all of our cast and actually just having fun with them, like not even taking the film, well, we take the film seriously, but just behind the scenes, all of us just having fun.
Fortunately, we were able to raise quite a lot of money with GoFundMe for our budget. We raised around £400 and we're able to put that to good use with obviously accommodating the actors and also collecting props, which Beth used very well. During production we did face a few issues. Not everything went as smoothly as we hoped. We underestimated a lot of the shooting time that we needed on Monday and Tuesday, which meant that our Friday shoot was a lot heavier and more intense, especially with facing deadline, with returning equipment and working with the actors. We got around 26 shots done on the Friday as a whole, which was a lot more than we initially planned.
Hi, I'm Will and I'm the first AD on Heart to Heart. So as first AD, this was a big role for me as I'm usually used to being producer, and I took on a lot of responsibility with this role. I was in constant communication with Alex all the way through pre-production, even getting involved in casting. This then led up to being on set. I took control of some of the shots, kind of like a second unit. During the pre-production process, my biggest role was finding locations and completing call sheets. The hardest location was first to find off hospital room, as this is quite tricky as we're in a university building, but due to being a nursing wing Mary C. Cole, that was easily sorted through communication, through Paul Britton and then to Bernard himself. Our next biggest location to find was the waiting room. Now this was quite tricky as most places in uni looked just like a study room, so we had to find somewhere that looked like someone could sleep in there but also fit into the hospital waiting room setting itself. We did this by using the Peel building and then Mary C. Cole itself. In the production process, we then moved to these locations. Monday was fine as we used TV studio in Media City to film the nightmare sequences. Coming to Tuesday though, our outdoor sequences filming with Stephen, there was too much background noise, so the best we could find was a bench by the Cockcroft building. And this had some issues due to sound, so the best we could do was we had to keep stopping and starting again, which did delay us a little bit and led to more filming on Friday, but overall we got the shot done. On Tuesday afternoon we then used the Peel building to film in the waiting room sequence, but due to some issues with the risk assessment this was unable to happen until this all went through, and then film went through the rest of the day. Wednesday went completely fine in Mary C. Cole. As Bernard came in, he got us everything. He got props, everything. We actually got drip, we got some bloods, tubes, got everything that we needed. Though due to the slowness on Tuesday, come to Friday, we had a very major pack day, and we had 26 shots to shoot. And using different locations that were quickly found within an hour, contacting Bernard, we found the 2 new waiting room sequences that then made it into the film. So as well as all being crew on the set, we did get to cameo in this film. I got to cameo as a doctor in one of the scenes. We had Daisy as in the waiting room. We had Beth walking past as a nurse before Stanley's scene. We had George cameoing as Stanley's son himself. We then had Molly as a nurse in the background in another of the waiting rooms. We had Jamie as the main surgeon. Alex had his actor debut as a speaking nurse, and Jessie in the background as just another hospital patient.
Hi, I'm Daisy. I was the director of photography on Heart to Heart. In pre-production, I looked over the shot list and storyboard and kind of visualised how we would shoot it and how to light it. So I thought instead of having a completely realist look with the lighting. We could do something a bit more dramatic with like shadows on the face to kind of get the tone of the film. So instead of having like overhead lighting, we had it higher and like on one side of the subject. We rehearsed the lighting in the waiting rooms in one of our classes. So we had a green gel over the light and balanced it to 4000K and balanced the camera to the same. If we had more time, I would have liked to practice the rest of the lighting setups, for example the board, before we actually got the set, but I think it ended up looking quite nice, and I like the softness of the scene with the one tungsten light, and then we had a dado light having some moonlight on the wall, which kind of sets the time of day. One issue we had with the lighting was when we were shooting outside, because the sun was kind of going in and out of behind the clouds, which made each take quite inconsistent. So we had to combat this by basically just waiting until a big cloud came over the sun, making sure that every shot that we did in that scene had a similar sort of lighting. So there was a lot of just waiting for the sun to go behind the clouds, but I think it paid off quite well in the end. In terms of camera, I was in charge of deciding what lenses to use and focusing everything and making sure that the shots stayed in focus. So if anything went out of focus, I would have to, well, say, so that obviously we could do the shot again. I had help from George doing some of the focus pulling on the track shots and handheld shots, which was very helpful. We had a couple of issues with kits because we didn't have the track on every day, but we managed to come up with some creative solutions. For example, I got in a crate and had people like pull it away. We put the camera on a table with wheels and like pushed it forward. So yeah, we didn't have the equipment on every day, but we managed to come up with some solutions, and I think it turned out pretty well.
Hi, I'm Beth Savage and I was the production designer on Heart to Heart. In pre-production, I started off by breaking down the script and then coming up with a budget based on all the props and costumes that I decided we needed. And then obviously with our GoFundMe, we had to raise some money. We wanted to make an authentic hospital setting for the waiting rooms and the ward scenes, so we used the Mary Seacole building and the Peel building, and with the help of Bernard, we got some very authentic props for our hospital. He gave us some stethoscopes and IV bags, and we very much appreciate him. I had to source some of the props by borrowing them, like the wheelchair and magazines, things like that. Some of them are easier to get than others, but the wheelchair managed to fortunately find someone who had a spare one they didn't need. Able to use that for the scene with Stanley's son, which I think worked really well, and also for that we needed a gown, which we repurposed for Louise as well, along with 3 sets of scrubs that we were able to use for all our different extras and the nurses with speaking parts. One issue that we ran into was we were given a cannula, authentic cannula, and a cannula plaster, but we didn't actually know how to apply that with no medical training. So I was trying to figure it out, and then turns out our actor Tim actually is trained and knows how to apply one, so he just helped us there, and we managed to get over this issue. One of the issues we faced with the dream sequence in particular was that all the equipment we had access to was only available at Mary Seacole because it's their own medical equipment. So for the dream sequence, we had to try and make it all ourselves with a blue sheet which we put fake blood on, and we put cotton wool around it and covered that in fake blood to mimic kind of the surgery area. And because we didn't have our actor for Louise on that day, we made sort of a fake body underneath, and also it didn't really matter about having anyone there because it's just for the sake of David thinking that that's Louise, and obviously getting very upset about that. So obviously, because we couldn't have a heart monitor, I had to then try and come up with a way to make one that looked reasonable enough. I think this went okay, but obviously there were limitations with the budget, and I looked into borrowing heart monitors, but we couldn't find any, so we just had to do the best with what we had, using an iPad.
Hi, I'm Molly, and I was a sound recorder on Heart to Heart. In the pre-production, I worked very closely with Jamie to make a sound script, so we knew exactly what we needed to record on set. And during the actual production, we had a few issues when we were recording outside, as it was very noisy, cars were going past, people were talking. So we tried to get the mic as close as possible to the actors, and we didn't have lav mics, so it was crucial that we got the clearest audio we could with the boom pole. The dialogue was really important for the film, as it was character driven, and we wanted it to be as clear as possible what the storyline was. There was a particular scene with a bed that was really noisy, and we couldn't really hear the audio for the dialogue, so we made sure to reshoot it closer, and I think it worked out well. We got the audio for it.
Hello, I'm Jamie Franklin, and I am the sound designer and also did some running on set. I didn't want to do anything too otherworldly with the sound design, purely because it's quite a grounded story. There are a couple of exceptions to that, such as the nightmare sequence or the sequence where the main character walks through a corridor. I think that attention to detail in sound design is very important. An example of when I did this is when for each character, their phone has a certain ringtone, but it's just their phone vibrating. And instead of using the same sound effect, what I did is I took one of the phones vibrating, moved it up a pitch or two, and then changed the sequence of it vibrating. After I created this different type of vibration for the phone, there's a point where a character has their phone in their pocket that starts to ring, and then they bring it out and answer it. So what I did for that was I turned the volume down and I used the EQ to muffle it and added a bit of reverb, and as they pull it out of their pocket, I pan from a little bit from the right to the left and then make it louder so it sounds like it's unmuffled and it really sounds like someone's phone is ringing out.
Here you can see some of the intricate audio work I had to do when patching together different audio clips. Here is the sound of the heart monitor during the nightmare sequence. Here are the EQ effects I put on for it. I set to an EQ preset of Outside the Club, which creates a muffled effect, but I also increase some of the bass to keep it a bit more muffled, and then around the mids I put up a little bit as well. I also put reverb on the heart monitor beeps, and I increased the decay to create a strange ghostly feel, and I kept the pre-delay down low as well, so it wouldn't echo too much. This clip shows a phone call, and here's the EQ settings that I set it to make it sound like it was on the phone. I just put it up a lot in the mid and took out a lot of the treble, all of the treble and all of the bass. Here's an example of how I used audio panning to create an atmosphere within the mix. This clip I'm showing you is a clip of a car driving away, and so it sounds like it's going from the left to the right here. By doing this, I was able to create a realistic atmosphere to place the viewer within the scene. Throughout the mix, I added a lot of nuance type sounds. Here is the sound of someone coughing, and I muffled it quite a lot to make it sound like it was coming from another room. Again, this is to build an atmosphere for the film and make the setting far more believable as it's set in a hospital. One way I could have improved would be my organisational skills whilst editing. As you can see, it's quite messy and nothing's really named properly or put in folders, and this actually did cause quite a few problems and caused a lot of time consumption that could have been otherwise avoided, so next time I'll make sure to properly organise everything. Here are the clips of someone's phone ringing. The first three are pitched down and have a muffle effect of them using the EQ as the phone's in the character's pocket, and the last two are as the character takes the phone out of their pocket and it becomes louder and less muffled and a bit higher in pitch. Here are some general ambience tracks. These ones in particular are hospital chatter. I used two different tracks for the hospital chatter. When the character's in a small room, I have it muffled and outside, and then when they're in a larger room, I have it so that it feels like the room's bustling, when in fact there's only just one person there.
Hi, I'm George, I'm the editor on Heart to Heart. At the end of every day, I would get the footage off the cameras and put it on my laptop and make sure that everything was ordered and that I had all the audio clips and the video clips lined up so that we weren't missing anything. And then when it came to actually getting edited, I took Alex's original storyboard and just worked off that as a basis. Some of the shots on the storyboard ended up either changing or we just didn't shoot them, which meant that I had to sort of work around that and work out how the story was going to fit together without those shots. The initial rough cut was sitting at about 11.5 minutes, which is about, we had a time limit of 10 minutes, so I had to cut that down a lot. There was a lot of sort of scenes where there wasn't much happening, there was a lot of like dead silence, so it was pretty easy to cut a lot of that out. After the rough cut meeting, we got told what needed to go, what they thought of the edit, what worked, what didn't, so I managed to cut it down to around 9.5 minutes for the final cut. So we cut a lot of dead silence, getting in and out of shots, making them a lot smoother, some dialogue that wasn't needed or didn't really work. And then I went around colouring. It's pretty simple colouring. We got a lot of the scenes were pretty well lit and the colour looked pretty good. There was just a couple of scenes mainly outside where they were pretty bright, and then some where the lighting had changed over the course of a shoot because we were in one location but there for quite a while. Now, when we've got to the current edit at the moment, we're under 8 minutes because we've managed to cut out a lot of dead space, and there's some significant parts of long dialogues, like Stanley has a long monologue scene. We decided it wasn't all needed, it wasn't all relevant, and it was just slowing down the pace of the film. So at the moment we're sitting at about 7:50, and it's about as tight as it's going to get, about as clean and smooth as it's going to get. There's just colouring and sound production to do on it, which is Jamie's job. When it came to editing, I realised there was a couple continuity errors. These were ranging from some really minor ones that weren't really an issue to some of them that weren't completely major but did pose a slight challenge when it came to editing. Mainly actors being in different positions between shots, so there'll be like two shots that are meant to be in sequence of each other, but between the shots they like move in an unnatural way, which makes cutting between them pretty difficult. But I just had to go through. We got quite a few takes of each shot, so it was quite easy to cut between them and work around any sort of continuity errors that I ran into.
Overall, I'm really happy with the film that we made. I think it sets a strong tone and successfully tells the story that I originally pitched from the start. In all elements, we were able to use the locations, the actors, sound design, set design, everything went really, really well. And yeah, overall I'm very happy.
And breathe. Alright, yes, everyone. Recording.